This is the future. Evolution.
The Crossing Realms Conference launches September 19th and 20th and will dock in Richmond, Missouri. This is already being called the event of the year, folks, with an unprecedented list of speakers and special guests, 2 days of cryptids, UFOs, and paranormal presentations, along with a celebrity-filled ghost hunt, meet and greet, gallery reading, vendors, and a film screening. This promises to be both educational and fun. Go to Eventbrite.com to secure your tickets and vendor slots before they are all abducted. They're going fast.
Whoa, I forgot to add myself. Hello, everybody. It's, of course, BMR here. Welcome to Beyond BMR. And yes, I must say, like I said in a post that I put out earlier today, I do not want to wish the summer away, but we're a little over 3 months away from this fantastic event we're all putting on, the 19th and 20th of September. Check out Eventbrite and secure your seats today. They are going fast, as Mr. Tex says in that little promo there. So thanks to everybody that's bought your tickets already. And you got time. You've got time. Just, before you know it, boom, 3 months is, it goes by much too fast for me anyways. We got a great show. Linda Eastburn joins us. Linda has a fabulous YouTube channel simply called Linda Eastburn on YouTube. Yeah, go check her out. And that's her link, Linda Eastburn, but I also did put her link in the show description. Linda is also the author of several books, and she's kind of like me. Linda Eastburn, type Linda Eastburn in on Amazon in your browser, and all her books pull up, kind of like my kind of like for good old BMR. If you type Bigfoot Mr. Rob in your Amazon browser, both my books will pull up. If you have bought it, thank you. If not, well, it's available. For those who bought it, thanks again. Just leave a review, because it's all analytics these days, and it does help promote the book sales. So thank you for that. And a little later in the show, I got to get Linda's links too on Amazon. But again, Linda Eastburn, and you can find all you need. Joining me, of course, the lovely Krista. I got to make sure she's done texting, because I caught her last time. We good to go? There
I'm
she
good
is.
to go.
You're good to go.
What's up?
What's up? How are you?
I'm good. Can I address something really quick?
Go ahead.
All right. So people in chat are asking about the little squares by their names. Do you see all those, Rob? Can you see them?
I can't see it on StreamYard.
Yes. So apparently, like, the more you chat, the more number higher you go. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know. Paul figured this out, so I was only going by what he said. So then you should be able to see on your channel somehow, Rob, that
on the phone I can,
yeah.
On the phone I can see it, but not on the StreamYard stream.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, not on StreamYard, but I can see it on my phone.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know what it is. I just noticed that, because the little squares that some of these people might get are the BMR Pirates are, mateys. That's right. You get a picture of me with my bandana. If you become a pirate, you can. That's available to everybody, and the super chat's open as well. So I just see that. It's like a crown or something, Krista. Like some sort of. So I guess it gives accolades to people that come in and chat all the time.
That's it. Yep. Real quick too. Hellbent Hollers in chat. Go and subscribe to them.
Yes,
they are awesome.
They had a great show yesterday. Go check it out if you did not. It was fantastic.
They always put out a good show.
Always put out a great show.
If you have not subbed to them, go do it.
Joe and Jesse, go check them out.
Yep.
Also, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. If you're new, subscribe to them. Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, please subscribe to me. If you're new. Texas Front Porch. Monica Rollins, Our Paranormal World. Donnie Cho Says Stuff. Paranormal Paul. And Truth or Tinfoil. Yeah, we've got, we're on 7 days a week. Turn on your alert bells.
Right.
And you'll catch all of us throughout the day, throughout the night, because we're on during the morning, during the night, midnight. I mean, we're on
freaking time.
We're on all the time. I don't know where we find the time to do all this, but we're on all the time.
Right.
Hit that like button, of course.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, Krista. And again, everybody, the conference, go check that out. We're doing a pre-party on Thursday now, which is pretty cool at a haunted ranch. We've just added that last week.
Mhm.
A lot of you know about that. That'll be a lot of fun.
That will be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to that
Yeah,
one.
I'm looking forward to the conference and
Mhm.
everybody that I haven't met as of yet.
Yep.
So, and another person who's going to be at our conference is Linda Eastburn, our guest tonight.
Yep.
And I am going to bring her up. Hello, Linda.
Hello, how are you doing?
Doing great. How are you? How are you?
Good, doing fine.
To see you.
You know, we were talking backstage. I always talk a little weather. We're not going to spend 20 minutes on the weather, but you guys storms. You know that Missouri, you guys. I think last time I checked, Missouri, the state of, you guys got hit with 122 tornadoes, if I'm correct, already.
About right. I tell you, they were coming through. 10 times 10 times 10, just traveling across the state.
Yeah, it's literally the whole state. It's not like just one area or, I've been getting it. I know she's been getting it down in Springfield. Brandy's down in Poplar Bluff getting it. And I got friends over in Kansas City, got a tornado through there today. So go figure.
That's right. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really don't affect Michigan, out knock on wood, too often. We get them, but they're up in the sky and they rarely touch down, maybe one or two touches down, but it doesn't really, they're not as dramatic like it is in the Midwest and down south. So
Are you saying Missouri is dramatic?
it's dramatic. 122 tornadoes. Yes, that's dramatic.
It's been pretty dramatic. It's off its meds for sure.
I mean, we don't get the damage as much as the Midwest, the other part of the Midwest and southern states. So, but that weather, the climate change is something else. It used to snow in December in Michigan. Now you got to wait till February. That's how much it's changed over the years.
Wow.
Yeah, which I don't mind, by the way. I don't mind the snow, unless you're up north. So, Linda, thanks for coming on in. Now we're going to talk some Bigfoot and we're going to talk some things that you're up to. And what I'd like to do to start the show, because this is more of a variety. We talk about a lot of different things, and I did want to make mention that your newest book is what it's called, S.P.I. Your Way to Power and Success. It talks about some manifestations and things, and it's not really all that cryptid related to start the show, but when it comes to manifestations, I think we can apply it to everyday life and cryptid and paranormal life, right? And what prompted you to start to write this book?
Well, this is kind of my roots. I worked for a long time as an intuitive and as a health intuitive as my specialty. Kind of remote viewing. Most people have heard of remote viewing. I just had developed a really, really good skill at doing that. So I did that by looking at people's mind, body, spirit, kind of combination, and was able to recognize things in the physical system. So that was something I did for a long time. This is kind of a continuation of that, but I think it was just this year that I recognized that I've always been able to see the future. This is just something that has just always been part of my world. I think I just took that kind of for granted. But I also recognized that by seeing the future, I could see opportunities coming down the line and then could prepare for those and to take advantage of many of those opportunities. And I don't know why I hadn't thought of it before. I think I was just preoccupied with Bigfoot and cryptids and the last few years. And before that, I was preoccupied with the health intuitive work. But suddenly I realized it's like, oh my gosh, this has just changed my entire life, no doubt, if I'd not had that capacity. So I thought, if I could bottle that and sell it,
right?
Because, it's like, who wouldn't want this, in their world? So I decided, okay, I had to kind of back engineer the experiences of my life to be able to know, okay, how is it that is done? How is it that you accomplish that? How is it that you can see that and then be able to, to do something with it, to make it a reality in your world? So, that's why I wrote the book, was to be able to hand that to people, teach people, give people that opportunity to hopefully have some of the same, really great, grand opportunities that I've had, including Bigfoot. This is a process that Bigfoot came to me through, this very process that I'm talking about.
I have to ask you right quick about looking into the future. Is this something you saw a vision you had, or just an intuitive
Comes in
proclamation?
different ways. Lots of times it's a dream, but sometimes it's just I hear the message. Sometimes I'm asking. I develop the ability to ask and get an answer. Now, before I did that, it was just random. I would just know something was coming about in the future. But then eventually I learned how to actually ask the question. And that's what I would teach people to do, to be able to have that inner dialogue with my intuition, so that I know, and now this book takes it even one step further, to just be able to scan for potential opportunities out there. And when you can see an opportunity, of course, you have to take action on it. I used to call it the silver platter of opportunity would be handed to me, but then you have to take action on it. It's not like it just falls in your lap, whatever comes about from that. But just many, many things have happened to me over the years. So that's what the book's about. It tells my story. It tells the story about people I've taught to be able to do this very thing. It dwells mostly on a positive note, but sometimes it's also warnings. Don't get on that airplane, don't get on that boat, don't drive down that road. There are lots of ways that, and we all have those, those impressions, that intuition speaking to us. I just take it to an excessive level, and be able to use it in all kinds of ways.
So you discovered this early out as a younger woman growing up.
Yeah, it started when I was pretty young. I don't know that I overly acknowledged it. It was there. It was kind of like a guiding sort of, thing in my world, but kind of knew right place, right time kind of thing, And in the beginning, it was probably a little bit more geared toward warnings of things, or just knowing things, just knowing stuff. But I really didn't acknowledge it that much until I was probably close to 40 before I really started developing that dialogue. And I was doing real estate. My husband and I owned a real estate business, and that's where it really, really super shocked. I mean, it was like we just knew things, what to do, what not to do. It was like going through a maze and knowing exactly where to turn and when to turn. So it was really good to us in that business. And because I've been an entrepreneur since the 80s and always been able to call my own shots in lots of ways, it's just served a really, really good purpose. I mean, most of the time, whenever you venture out and do new things, you might be successful, you might not be successful at it. It's a shot in the dark. You just don't know. So this has been like my right-hand helper along the way. So that's what I like to teach people and help people to be able to utilize that same skill.
I've often found that most people have an intuitive, ability. How everybody has that standing in the grocery store line, and you get the sense someone's watching you or looking at you. You turn around, and certainly they are. Do you think that everybody has this innate ability, but other people just take it to a different level and explore it, and then you can enhance those skills?
Yeah, it's practice. I mean, it's like anything else. I'm not a real athletic person, but I know if I play tennis every single day of my life, I would be much better at playing tennis. It's just practice. I think, being in the Western culture that we're in, most people we kind of have it institutionalized out of us, to even be able to acknowledge it. It's just kind of a joke. It's a lot like the cryptid world, It's like a lot of people that don't know the real stories of the cryptids, that the people that go out there in the woods and the people who have experiences, such as the two of you. I mean, because you've had the experience, but
Sure.
Other people that haven't had that experience might just laugh it off and say that it doesn't exist at all. That's called, institutionalizing it out of us, between our communities basically don't believe it. When you experience it, and I believe that everyone can learn this, it's a different ballgame. It's true, it's real, and you can use it. I mean, it's just another skill, in my opinion. So
I couldn't agree more, especially like that that gut feeling, people get. I always tell them, if your gut's telling you to go right, but you really want to go left, you better listen to your gut and go right.
That's right. It really will speak to you, and it speaks through your body, and it speaks through feelings. You might hear a message, and I'm very auditory, so I hear a lot of things. It's symbolically in dreams a lot. I used to have a lot of prophetic dreams about, real estate stuff or just something I needed to do, and usually it was preparatory for something coming up, maybe, might be 6 months, but I needed to start now, getting ready for that. And it's like, tell you, if you start listening to that, it can really be a positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of like that at a young age too. And I found too that when you talk about dreams, Linda, I didn't really pay much attention for a while because I worked in the automotive industry as a manager, and then I had my own business for 13 years. And for both of those instances, those are my two longest jobs that I've had, right? And it seemed like, and I've always had, Krista knows this, I've always had these weird dreams that seem lifelike and almost real. And a lot of times, ideas, I would have dreams at night, and then I started utilizing my dreams because a lot of my dreams were based on business ideas, whether I'm at work or when I owned my bar that I had, right? And I started I would get up, I started having a notepad and paper next to my nightstand. And if I woke up, and I typically always wake up in a dream, it seems like, even to this day. And if I had a dream that I thought had significance, I would jot it down, and I used to implement a lot of the dreams into everyday life.
Yeah.
And here's the thing too, like with BMR, like he has told me so many different things like that he's predicted and things like that. Rob, you need to take Linda's classes.
Maybe because
no, seriously, I'm being serious here. You really do.
Well, Krista seems to think I have a special talent or gift somewhere stowed away. Because I have
come up with and said, I'm like, hello.
Yeah, I predicted a person. I'm not getting into it, Linda. I want to, this show is all about you, of course, but I will tell you really quickly. When I was a young boy, 5, 6 years old, there was this kid, Jimmy, that I just thought, I told my mom and dad he was evil. I did. And I used the word evil as a 7 or 8-year-old. My mom and dad said, where'd you come up with that word from already? Because obviously your parents are guarded. They never spoke with in that language. And I said, I just got a bad feeling about this kid. So throughout my entire life, and Jimmy lived in the neighborhood, and Jimmy ended up going through my middle school, my high school. And I kept telling my friends, don't befriend this guy. And people looked at me like I was maybe jealous of the guy, and I was not. I just, of all the people in the world that I've ever met in my lifetime, this guy struck me oddly, but chillingly oddly. So one time we're playing soccer, 12. I remember distinctly, it's 12th grade, and we're outside. It was we're playing soccer, and me and this Jimmy kid, we get into contact, and we're rolling around on the ground, and I'm touching him physically. And something in my brain went off. I got this chill, and I pushed him away from me, and like a little baby, I got up and I ran from him, and I looked. It was kind of embarrassing because I was like acting like I was scared, and my friends made fun of me, and I never really said the feelings I got because people already knew I didn't like the kid anyway. It was just very crazy. So I went off to college, and then 4 years. Then I came home from where I went to school, and my mom and dad had me this party. Rob, we got to tell you something about that Jimmy. Throughout your entire life, you never liked that kid. We just thought you just had it in for him. I go, what do you do? I mean, I don't know. What's up with Jimmy? You're bringing up Jimmy. Jimmy actually was in prison because he unalived his grandmother when I was in college.
Yeah.
And I knew he was bad news my entire life. And a backstory to this, I found a bunch of the creek that ran through our neighborhood, ran through Jimmy's backyard. And I was about 11 or 12 years old riding our BMX bike. and we found a bunch of skinned cats hanging from the trees.
Wow.
Lo and behold, guess where the backyard lined up with? Jimmy.
Mhm.
So I'm just saying, and I've always had, when I owned my bar, I would never look at somebody's application. I would just sum them up in 3 minutes, and I would determine if they would work out or not. And if I did not do that, and I just went off their application, 9 times out of 10 they failed. But everybody that I personally spoke with, without looking at their credentials, they always worked out. So yeah, I've got something going on throughout my life.
Well, and here's the thing too, like, you know, and I know Linda can probably even attest to this, you know, like if you walk into a room, a crowded room, and there's somebody like you were just saying that you didn't like, you know, that you see on there or something, you know, they put off a bad vibe. You know what I'm saying? But then there's people that you might come across that like have a really good aura about them and like you're instant friends. I think that's all part of it too. Would you agree with that, Linda?
Yeah, I think that, you know, everything just goes back to frequency. And I think you know, when you line up and you have something in common with someone, you tend to immediately feel that with them. There's a camaraderie about their energy. And when you don't, when they just don't fit your values and they're just like you said, you know, they're just not a good person, you very well might sense that too. Yeah,
Yep.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Because I mean, there's even like where I work, there's probably 50 employees, and there's several in there that just give me bad vibes. And I know they're probably really not a good person, you know, but I just stay away from them, you know. But then
Right.
there's others that are, you know, put off really good vibes. And I think that's intuition, you know, and I believe like we all kind of have that.
I think so. Yeah, I think we have that type of intuition. It kind of tells us where to go and who to hang with and who to stay
Right.
away from.
Right.
Yeah, those are all things that are very much part of it. Yeah.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
And of course, so everybody listening, Linda's book, she has all of her books. Linda, your books are on Amazon, and is there any other place where your publications are?
Yeah, you can go to just lindaeastburn.com and I can sell them to you directly, or you can contact me through my Facebook group, Bigfoot Cryptids Midwest. Any way you want to do it, you can, but Amazon's probably the easiest way.
Yep. And it's pretty easy because I typed in Linda Eastburn and they all pulled up, you know, so very easy. Don't even need a link. Just, you know, go on your Amazon browser. So that's S.P.I. It's your way to power and success. Highly recommended, everybody. And you also had a book last year we talked about, which was, I read it. Threshold to Encounters, of course.
Right. Yeah, that's my Bigfoot book. Yeah.
That's your Bigfoot book. Now,
Yeah.
before we get into that, I know how I got involved with Bigfoot. First, I found paranormal always followed me from a 5-year-old up until 2018 when I saw Bigfoot. Same with like Krista. So then everybody I come across to and talk with, there's a reason why they got involved with Bigfoot. Now I knew about Bigfoot as a kid and actually as a young adult, and I believed it probably could exist from the Leonard Nimoy, and I saw Patty. But you know, back when I was watching those shows, I never to this day thought I would do a show about it, right? Or write books on it, right? So until I had that encounter. So for you, what led you down that rabbit hole and get involved with Bigfoot and the paranormal?
Yeah, this was just a few years ago. I guess it was 2022. I was doing Intuitive Journeys, which was a show and was my first experience with the YouTube channel, putting it on the YouTube channel. And it was just a cute little show. I was teaching people to remote view, and it was more just for entertainment, but we did have some successes on that show. But at one point, I was what I really wanted, and this is the thing about the manifestation book. It's like when you really want something, the universe kind of finds a way, you know, and that's where you get the right place, right timing, sort of thing. So I did recognize that a lot of the documentary films I'd made, you know, there wasn't as big of an audience as I wanted. I wanted a venue online, and so my editor was saying, you know, you need to go YouTube. You need to go YouTube. So we did this little Intuitive Journey show, put it on YouTube. It did okay. There were several. It was like 10 episodes or 14 episodes, something like that, still up on the channel. But I really wanted a broader audience, and I wasn't sure exactly how to get between point A and point B, right? So there's that opportunity thing that comes along. a friend of mine was kind of looking at some intuitive things for me, and she saw this, opportunity coming along, and it was brought to me by Bigfoot. And I'm going, what? I don't know a thing about Bigfoot. What am I supposed to do with that? But this was that kind of unusual roundabout intuitive message that was handed to me on the silver platter. Just happened to be that there was a Bigfoot conference in our area. We'd never had one in this neck of the woods, as far as I know. And so I get online, I see that coming across Facebook, like there's a Bigfoot conference here. And I thought, well, that's quite a coincidence. She just told me that a few days ago. So I know better than to ignore things like that. When they come along and it just starts building on itself, I know to keep looking at that. So I was looking at all of the people who were speaking, and Scott Carpenter was speaking, or Shane Carpenter was speaking, Ron Bowles was speaking. It was just a small little conference. And Scott Nelson was going to be there. And I'm looking through all the people. I don't know any of these people, of course, but I'm thinking, well, Scott Nelson, he's a linguist. That looks like a kind of an interesting character. Maybe I'll try to interview him. But I couldn't find him. He had absolutely no footprint online, no social media, nothing. I could not get in touch with this guy. So I finally went to his talk. And afterwards, of course, everybody was talking to him afterwards. So I just talked to his son and got his email and sent him a request for an interview. And that was when I was filming most of my stuff. I wasn't doing anything as Zoom or anything like this. So he said, yeah, sure. So a girlfriend and I went up and we spent a couple of days, and I got about 6 hours of film with him and put together and I was ready to give up on YouTube. I mean, this is how my conscious mind works. It's like, okay, it's not going anywhere. I'm just going to hang it up. I'm going to finish this last thing with Scott Nelson on the Bigfoot linguist thing. And just, if it doesn't fly, then we're just going to go make the documentaries that I had been making. So we put it up on, I think it was in January of 23 or February of 23, put it up on I believe it was a Thursday. And normally the little shows we put up, they get 200-300 views. I mean, it was mostly, friends and relatives that we knew, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I was writing a script for a documentary with my sister, and it was a crime script. It was a local crime that had happened some years ago, but we knew it inside and out. So we felt like we could really put together a documentary about that. Would be really interesting. So it's about 2 p.m. on Friday. And I look, and it's like, oh, that has 800 views. It's like, oh my gosh, 800 views. This is unreal.
Yeah.
So by 5 o'clock, between 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock, it was up to 2,500 views. Within minutes, it was 35, 45, and it's zoomed up now to around 265,000 views. So it was like the thing that got me into Bigfoot. But you see, I was asking for a venue into a larger audience, and Bigfoot delivered. That's how I got that. So
I got it. Yeah, that's awesome. That's crazy. I mean, which is awesome, by the way. And so I have to ask you, Scott Nelson.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to star that. Sorry. It was a question, so I apologize.
You're okay. So Scott Nelson, obviously, linguist. Now, did you know who Ron Moorhead was?
I didn't know anyone. I mean, I knew no one. I had no idea who Ron Moorhead was.
So were you a believer in Bigfoot, or did you think it was, what were your thoughts about it?
I'm a pretty open-minded person. And so I didn't really have a belief in Bigfoot or against Bigfoot.
Sure.
What I did know was that a lot of people did believe in Bigfoot, but I had never seen any of the shows. I had not seen the Patterson Gimlin film. I knew nothing. I mean, I was starting from scratch. Now this was the challenge, was having this one successful show, and now suddenly, everyone wants me to produce more shows, and I don't know the community well enough to even do that. So I am searching, for people who've written books about Bigfoot and people. I didn't have the group. I didn't know even to go online and see the group. So I was just trying to find anyone and everyone that knew anything about Bigfoot. and started the Zoom interviews, which allowed for a lot more capacity, you know, because around here there are only so many people I'm going to get to interview in person in my backyard, you know. So,
Yeah.
you know, and that just led to one person after another, after another, after another, after another, and now it's 440 some interviews later. I know a lot more about Bigfoot today than I did 2 years ago, but that's how it came about, and it's been really good to me. I mean, it's a great community. It's just
it really is. Couldn't agree more.
You know, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. You and I actually met at 2 years ago, I guess, at the Ozark conference. Yeah.
We did. Yes. Same conference. It wasn't the one I met Scott Nelson, but it was the year after that, I think.
Year after. Yeah. Good deal.
So let me ask you, I don't know if I asked you this, and if I did last year, I forget, but so you personally then, you've never seen or experienced anything remotely close to a Bigfoot, or you don't know?
Well, we made the film Byways of Bigfoot near the Niagara River, which isn't far from here. There was a gentleman that I'd interviewed that his property kind of backed up to the Niagara River. And I knew there were stories on the BFRO website. There were stories of Bigfoot all along that river, all the way up to Bennett Springs, Missouri, and all the way to Kansas City. So I asked him if he would be willing to allow us to film on his property. Plus, there are a lot of parks and entranceways into that river that we could access and do some research. So I put together a team that we went out, and I was amazed at what we found. So I have not seen a Bigfoot, but we feel like we did get enough evidence that Bigfoot definitely is alive and well along the Niagara River. We saw footprints right next to these tree breaks. We saw claws, 9 feet up on trees.
Wow.
We saw beds laid down. We saw trackways. We found trackways on his property. There were just a lot of things. We put out a few gifting items. We put out some peanut butter jars inside boxes that you could not get that open if you did not have the dexterity, to open the box. Mm-hmm. And it took a while. That wasn't an immediate thing, but within, I think, 6 months or so, something had opened the boxes and got the peanut butter out. So yeah, we saw evidence. They're out there. And then since then, I've heard along that same river, other people that have seen Bigfoot right there in some of the area where we were actually filming. So that's as close as I've gotten personally to Bigfoot.
Sounds like it's pretty close, though, really.
It's not far away, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the guys in the show, he had seen a Bigfoot right here in Springfield when he was a teenager. And then another person in the show, Ron Bowles, you probably all know him. Yeah. Of course, he was just outside of Springfield along the same riverway. These two guys saw Bigfoot nearly the same time, within the same time frame, along the same riverway, one just on the west side of Springfield and the other one just south of Springfield. So it could have been the same Bigfoot. We don't know, or family of,
Right. Well, there's a lot of them down in that area and south.
Mm-hmm. There are, yeah. There's a lot in this area. There's a lot all over the place. It seems like to me. I just keep talking to people, and it's like everywhere you go, every person I talk to, it's like multiple sightings in multiple places. Either people aren't talking about seeing these things, and a lot of them aren't. I don't think,
right.
No.
Or they're just But I think they're seen more often than you realize.
Yeah, I do too. I think I just don't think a lot of people come forward.
Yeah, a lot of them still don't to this day. Like Linda, a lot of times it's almost like, even to find a guest I'll get emails from folks, right, that I'll say, oh my God, this is an incredible encounter. Would you want to come on the show? Well, no. I just want to send it to you. If you want to do a video or share it, that's fine, but I'm not coming on. I have that phobia about being judged or ridiculed. And a lot of people are still to this day worried about, the workplace, if my boss finds out, he might think differently of me. I think that it still goes on today. Maybe not as much today as maybe a decade or longer. But, some of these stories, as Linda, from your own experiences with folks, some are quite incredible. It's almost like, really? Yeah. I mean, really?
Thanks, I think for every one that someone comes forward, I think there's 5 that people don't talk about.
At least. Yeah, at least.
Yeah. It's crazy. Thank you, Diane and Welcome, Larry.
Thanks, Diane and Larry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and too, we've talked about this, like I feel like people are seeing them more, but, I think we're infringing on their territories, I mean, new subdivisions and shopping centers, all that's going up all over, so I think that's why they're being seen more as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And, we're infringing on their spaces, and they sometimes, due to weather changes and things like that, I'm sure their environments changes sometimes too, and they're looking for food or resources, and thus they come closer to us and we get closer to them.
Yep, absolutely. And plus, people may not know it, but Missouri is the cave state. There are caves all over, but we are the cave state, so there's plenty of places for them to get out of weather and all that good stuff. So
plenty of caves, plenty of rivers, lots of lakes. Yeah.
Lots of deer for food and.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated by the caves, Linda, too, especially in your state or Krista's state too. We always hear about they travel along waterways, tributaries, light, electric poles. I mean, or whatever, not electric poles, but yeah, power poles. And the cave idea I find fascinating. You've spoken probably to a few people. I have not seen all of your shows. You have a tremendous amount of them. I've never come across one where they had a Bigfoot allegedly come from a cave system. Do you think that? Let me ask. I'll re-question this. Do you have you experienced through your research and talking with folks that a lot of them come from the cave systems?
I think a lot of theories are out there about Bigfoot traveling through caves, but come to think of it, I don't think in all the interviews I've done, anyone has ever said they saw a Bigfoot actually inside a cave or coming out of a cave. I don't recall that. Nearby caves, yes, but I don't think anyone has ever said that they saw a Bigfoot in or near it, or entering or exiting a cave system. So, but there's a lot of theory that that's where they maybe travel through, but I don't know. Ron Bowles, when our show, we brought that up because there were a lot of caves near the Niagara River, and Ron Bowles said, he doubted that a little bit because a lot of the caves have very, very small openings, and Bigfoot's a pretty big character, so it might be a little difficult for them to get in and out of a cave entrance. Some of them.
Yeah.
I always thought that too. You kind of read my mind there because I know there are big cave openings. Don't get me wrong, but it seems like a lot of caves they're. I mean, I can't even get through some of them. I mean, some of them are no more than 3 foot wide.
Yeah.
And then
even if you get through a cave, through portions of it, then it can really narrow at a portion once you're down the line in the cave. So, yeah, I think it would be difficult for a Bigfoot to travel through caves.
Yep.
Do you think that, again, referring back to a lot of folks you've spoken with, what's the general opinion that what's your feeling toward the people you've spoken with? Are they staunch flesh and blood, staunch paranormal, or a little bit of both?
It divides around 50-50, but I can say that a lot of people that I interview start out with just the flesh and blood. I mean, that's just a natural thing for you to think of,
Yep.
And then something happens, something really strange and bizarre happens, and then they have to rethink that. And especially when some really weird paranormal stuff starts happening out there in the woods, the thing with Bigfoot stuff, and I've been noticing this lately, but more and more, are all of the sounds of something, I've maybe seen something moving in the bushes and hearing all of these sounds real close by. And then after it's all said and done, they go check out the area, and there should be trampled down grass, limbs broken, all kinds of things in that area where the sound came from. And there's nothing. Or they have really strange sounds, like cowbells where there's no possible chance of cattle being around. Or sounds like the latest has been electrical drills or like chainsaws or something like that, when there's nothing. I mean, they're really so in such a remote area, there's nothing like that going on, but they hear some kind of a metallic sound happening, like a drill. And I don't know what that's about. I mean, they don't see a Bigfoot, so they can't really associate it. But in the area, they have seen Bigfoot. So I don't know. I don't know what these sounds are. I don't know why there's evidence by auditory evidence, but then no other evidence.
Yeah, Martin Groves. We actually, Brandy recorded the metal door sound. We were at a cemetery at the Land Between the Lakes. And that night we let Martin Groves listen to it. He thinks it was a portal. So
could be.
Very well, and this was like 2:00 in the afternoon when we felt when she recorded that. We didn't hear it it wasn't audible, so it was interesting for sure.
Yeah, it's very strange things start happening sometimes. Of course, we all know about orbs and lights and things like that. I mean, that's a fairly common thing, whether Bigfoot's around or not. Someone the other day did. They were trying to measure electromagnetic fields and radiation in an area, and they had seen a Bigfoot walking in an area, and they immediately measured it, and there was a significant amount more radiation there. So I don't know what that's from. I haven't had very many people say that, but a few people that are actually starting to measure more things around a Bigfoot sighting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you know, after we saw you that day, I don't know if you know this or not, do you know that night we were doing the camp out with all of them, and we went back to that property, and we had a Bigfoot encounter that night. Brandy seen it, one on, like Daniel Perez interviewed her for it, and I seen the shadow of it around our tent. It was crazy. That night, it was like 3:00 in the morning. It was crazy, crazy night.
Yeah, that is cool. Yeah.
Yep. So interesting. Welcome back, Rob.
Well, thank you. I had to take care of something. Hey, let me ask you guys. I'm going to ask Linda, and Chris, so you can chime in. Of all the experiences with folks that you've interviewed, Linda, if you'd care to share, what one strikes you as like one of the stories or encounters? Of course, see, when I say stories, people say, "Rob, what do you mean story?" They seem to associate story with fabrications. No, a story, it's an encounter story. So I just always have to qualify. So what one really, maybe there's one that maybe grabbed you and you really felt emotional about it, or maybe is there one that terrified you?
The most terrifying one I did was actually a dog man story. And four boys in the warehouse. You probably all heard that story. And that's a good one. That one, I mean, part of it was, it was a phenomenal story, but also he just was able to deliver it with such depth of emotion that it was like sitting there watching a horror film. I was there with him every step of the way in that story. But that was probably the scariest thing that I have ever heard. I tend to really enjoy some of the paranormal experiences that people have while they're having this. So some of the more interesting ones, a woman that went camping and she heard chimes moving, and she looked outside, and the chimes were just like as if they were hanging down straight, but they would move upward without touching one another. But this chime sound was just, was there. But the weird thing is, shortly thereafter, because I know a lot of UFO researchers as well, and this woman was saying the same thing happened at her house, on a back porch where, it was like a closed-in back porch. The very same thing happened to her. The thing wasn't even moving, and it was this chime sound. That was just very strange because I heard them back to back within a week of one another. So I don't know what it is with chimes. What's going on with chimes? I don't know. I just found that really strange.
Agreed. Yeah.
A lot of people play like instruments out in the field. Not too many people I know, but things I've come across, like a flute, a violin, they kind of draw them in sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know that I buy that too much. I think anybody could be drawn in by that. I think it would scare things away more so than anything else.
Some people, I mean, the approach that people have to seeing Bigfoot, I mean, it's just like all over the place.
Yeah.
Some people make a lot of noise. Some people just remain quiet. Some people are out, like tracking and hunting, and other people just camp and they, come to us kind of thing. It's just all over the place.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Rob.
I was just saying, I'm a proponent of the person. See, what I believe is this: intentions, right? If you are intending to go look for a cryptid in the field, I think that, and you're just gung ho, and I'm gonna go out find Bigfoot. I'm hunting Bigfoot or whatever it is. They know as soon as you get out of your vehicle and start trekking up the trail, what you want to get out of your hike or your camping trip. Now, most of the coolest stories and the people that come across with the most encounters, I find, is mom and dad camper with their kids, and they're out in the they set up a tent in the middle of the woods, and they have no clue as what even Bigfoot is, and all of a sudden something comes racing around the outside of their tent at night, or trampling through their, right through their grounds, right? You hear that a lot, because the people are just, they're unaware, right? And they're just sitting there. And I think a lot of people too, that the longer you stay in the woods, they warm up to you and come closer. If you're out there, I mean, if you're out there for a day or two, maybe you don't get as much, but I find a lot of people who spend a week or more out there, that they tend to get a little more activity.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing.
Yeah. And, Rob, you mentioned like, they know you're coming out there, and perfect example, 2 weeks ago, Brandy and I was with Miguel and the Ozark Hairy Man at a Emmaus asylum. And Miguel was setting up his tent, and we had howls on both sides of the valley, like they were telling each other. It was really pretty crazy. Like they were communicating like, hey, there's something going on over here. And so, yeah.
I just, as you were saying that, it reminded me, but I think a lot of in nature, a lot of things do that, because I walk out my door and the crows start calling, and then 3 blocks away the crows are calling, so they kind of do communicate. I think.
Yeah, they really do.
Everybody knows what's going on.
If you're ever up in our area, I'd love to invite you to this place over here, Linda.
Yeah, love to.
Crazy, haunted. It's full of all kinds of weirdness, and the skies are crazy there. So
yeah, sounds like fun.
Yep. If you're in the St. Louis area, you holler at me.
I will. Yeah.
There's another thing that I'm going to say right now, because I'm not a big proponent either of the people that make up the whoops. A guy is going to blast out a call or smack on take a bat and smash on the stump of a tree. To me, you're not fooling Bigfoot, right? They know it's manufactured.
Right.
I think you're right. I think that it might get their attention, but I'm sure they know it's not another Bigfoot.
Yeah, I think you'll get their attention, but like I said earlier, they already know you're there. I mean, I just always get a kick out of that. Some of these TV shows.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, Linda. I know, again, you have a great channel, a lot of great information, a lot of great interviews with researchers, also with experiencers. You haven't seen a Bigfoot. You're aware, and have some evidence that you came across. Growing up throughout your life in the paranormal field now, have you experienced anything outside of cryptids?
I've experienced a few things. Mostly what I've had has been the intuitive part, the psychic part, knowing things. But in the midst of doing that, of course, you can run across, lots of odd things that also happen. But I had one small ghost encounter. I used to own a house that was haunted. But it was a rental property and other people lived there, but they just would tell us about it. But the whole community knew, and it actually made the news one year. It was that haunted, so wow. It was really haunted. Yeah. And then I used to live in a community where there was just a lot of really strange UFO things happened there. Bigfoot was seen in the area, and it was a rural area. And also strange lights. I mean, just really, really odd lights were seen all around there too. And this one place that some people would go on occasion, it was kind of a park-like setting, but this one area in this park-like setting, it was like you could hear voices of some sort. That was really weird. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that happened. And the only other weird thing I had, really wasn't Bigfoot related as far as I know. But it was an orange light in the sky. I didn't think it was a UFO, but it was an orange light in the sky, and it was just above a tree line. And then suddenly I watched it about 10 minutes, and it was nighttime, maybe 10 o'clock at night. Slowly it goes down behind the trees. And the weird thing was that there were 3 cows mutilated that very night in the field where this orange light was, and in each of the farms on each side of this particular pasture. So, I don't know if that orange light had anything to do with that or not, but it didn't behave like any kind of light that I would normally, love.
So, yeah, now you don't have to ask you this with the orange light, orbs, whatever. Do you think there's a correlation between people that have UFO encounters or sightings and all of a sudden a Bigfoot is spotted in the area?
This is my personal philosophy, and maybe it's just because I've taught people to do a lot of this, and I'll reference why I think this, but I think that some people can see deeper into that world than other people. Mm-hmm. And some people are just hardcore physical people, and they will always just see a flesh and blood Bigfoot. That's all they're ever probably going to see. But some people are just more perceptive. They can see those lights. They can see, things. They hear things more easily. And I think those people are more inclined to have ghost experiences, paranormal experiences, Bigfoot experiences, UFO experiences. I'm pretty grounded, and I have been on so many UFO trips, and I have really only seen very, very little that orange light. Now, but on the other hand, going back to my manifestation book, at one point I decided, I wonder if you could create a UFO in the sky, just concentrate on it and create it. Mm-hmm. So I put a group together. They didn't know what we were doing. It was a small little experiment. So they had an image that they were supposed to. It was kind of a tic-tac looking kind of UFO type image. And they were supposed to look at that for every day for 21 days. And then we got together, just a normal Sunday afternoon. We looked at this kind of thing again, meditated on it, went outside, just looked into the sky, projected that image in the sky. And I just stood there with a camera and shot 50 shots. Now, this was back in the 80s. No, it would have been in the early 90s, sometime before digital cameras, before phones, had cameras or anything like that. So I'm just shooting about 50 rounds of film, and got them developed back when you had to go get film developed. And in every shot, there was an image. It was not, if I had it, I'd show it to you. It was not like bold. You had to look, you had to find it, but it was definitely there. It stood out above and beyond all the other clouds. It did not move through 50 shots. It stayed in one specific place the whole time. And I just found that interesting that it meshed within the clouds, but it wasn't like the clouds. It was darker than the clouds. Mm-hmm. So I found that was kind of an interesting thing, but of course, with all the remote viewing that I've studied, it is known that, that consciousness, as we concentrate on things, we impact things. Mm-hmm. That was, proven by Ingo Swann when he remote viewed this piece of machinery that was so utterly protected in this, this place that no one should even know what it looked like. No one should know, and while he was remote viewing it, this thing began to behave with anomalies. And so that's been proven over and over and over again. We impact what we think about, what we concentrate on. So if you have someone that, that has the ability, to kind of penetrate that world, I think that if you want to see a Bigfoot, you'll probably be able to see a Bigfoot. If you want to see a UFO, you might be able to see a UFO. But I don't think we're absent of the experience. I guess that's what I want to say.
Right. That makes sense. Total sense, because even same thing, like on a paranormal realm, on a ghost realm, mm-hmm. like even like a poltergeist, it's manifested.
Oh yeah, definitely. As a matter of fact, I talk a lot about, that particular process as part of my training that I give to people. It's like, it's a biophysics process. We actually emit this, biophotons, and those biophotons can go out there and definitely impact all of the things that then happen to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your thoughts about like the CE5 and
see, Christy, you always steal my questions.
Really, you were going to ask that?
I knew you were going to ask it.
Well, yeah, I'm curious.
See, Chris and I know each other well enough, right? We can tell. We know we perform mind speak.
Yeah, probably so. I think there's probably some legitimacy to that. I think I've known of people that would go out and and meditate as a group, and then be able to have experiences that they didn't have when they weren't meditating. So I think there's some validity to some of that.
Yeah, I do too. And, I was just wondering, because what we were just talking about, manifesting and, so people, when they're meditating, are they manifesting?
Well, let me give you an example of, kind of when I first started really recognizing that my thoughts might impact some things. I remember I was on a little trip, and it was in the wintertime. It was getting later in the evening, and I don't like to drive on icy roads. I'm just not really skilled at that. And so I just really didn't want to do that. So I was meditating, and it was raining, and it was really starting to drop. It was like that borderline temperature. So I was meditating on that, we're asking, because by then I created a dialogue with that kind of inner self, and how the roads were going to be. And I was about 3 hours away from Conway, Arkansas at that time. We were headed to Hot Springs, Arkansas. And I heard a distinct voice that said, the roads will be completely dry, Conway, Arkansas, and you will drive all the way on dry roads. We got to Conway, Arkansas, dry roads, all the way to Hot Springs. So then that posed, 14 more questions, of course. And it's like, okay, did I just intuitively know that? Which is what I would have always thought before. Right. Or did I create that? And the word that came back was very interesting. It said both. And I go, okay, so then it was really confusing. As you see it, you create it. So it's like, or it's the beginning portions of the creation of it, Sure. So, but it's the biophotons. Yes, your biophotons go out there, they kind of enmesh that event in kind of a radioactive field. And, it's like, but you have to have a lot of photons to do that, which requires a lot of concentration. And that's what happens when people are super able to really concentrate. They can move objects. I've never really moved an object that I know of. I've never tried to do that, but they can do things, but it creates, good concentration and lots of biophotons. You're putting all of you into it, and be able to, see it, and then, bring it all the way into actually physically doing it. The weird thing is, we understand this with our physical bodies because we have energy. And, you take your hand, you pick up a pen and you write, you're manipulating energy when you do that. But the thing is, on an energy field level, learning to manipulate energy fields is a little different ballgame, but it's the same process. It's really exactly the same process.
Yeah.
Very cool. I know several people that are remote viewers, and I get different, they tell me different things about the way they conduct the remote viewing. Now, you mentioned earlier, you are adept at remote viewing?
Yes, I teach remote viewing. I do remote viewing, but my introduction was more of an Edgar Cayce method, going into a deep inner level state and verbalizing it. I can do both, and they complement one another, but yeah, do remote viewing.
Yeah.
Have you ever, I always ask this question, I'm always fascinated by this. As a remote viewer, and let's say that you're going through the process for whatever subject you're looking at. Have you ever found a remote viewer viewing you?
Funny you should say that. Now this takes me back a ways. The very first remote viewing class I taught, I think there were maybe 20 people in the class. And, at that time, remote viewing wasn't that well known. We're talking around 2000, probably around 2000, the year 2000, somewhere around there. And I put out, lots of feelers, Kansas City, St. Louis, Arkansas, all around, to anybody who might want to come to this class. And I got a call one day, and this guy wanted to take the class, and I was just making chit chat with him and asking him, oh, well, that's nice. What do you do? And he was in the military. Well, he was in the military stationed in Texas, but he was here in Missouri for the time being. And I said, well, are you sure you're going to be able to take 5 days out of your military schedule to come to a remote viewing class? And he made it very clear. It was not only possible, but it was an assignment, that he'd be in a remote viewing class. So I think they were more watching me, more than anything else, because he took pictures of all of us. Because when you can remote view stuff, if you're very good at it at all, I mean, there's nothing that's very secret,
Right.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
but it was funny because later on I was trying to see to answer your question, to see if he, was really planted there to investigate us. And I saw him looking at me. So that was kind of funny. But normally I don't see. Yeah. But I don't intrude on a lot of people's space.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the professional thing to do. I know a lot of people are very skilled at it. Some have different levels. And it's like, yeah, you don't want to just be checking out your best friend, your wife, your boss. I mean, things like that's kind of.
I think anytime you do
involved, right?
Well, I think anytime you do like any type of metaphysics, like, even like to read someone that doesn't give you permission, that's not okay. You
no,
you have to have permission. Yeah. But you're sitting there, Rob, like popping in on your boss or something, that's not right.
When I teach this, I always refer to it as like, well, you don't go into someone's house and look through their underwear drawer.
Correct.
You don't do that, and so you don't go into someone's mind space, and just start searching through things. No, you just don't do that.
Although everybody seems to go through the medicine cabinet.
Yeah. Well, they might do that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't still know why people do that. It's been going on.
I don't do that. Am I the only one?
I don't. Hey, listen, I do not. But I was reading something online about crazy lists of what Americans do, and one of the number one things that people do, whether it's a stranger, a relative, or a friend, when they go use the bathroom, they always go into the medicine cabinet, like 95% of the time. I've never done it once in my life.
I don't do
I've never done. I'm the 5%er.
Yeah, like who does that?
Right. There does have to be a certain amount of ethics with the teaching of this, because it is something that you can invade space, and you can influence people too. So you have to be somewhat conscious of that. And I can say that, we probably do it all the time. We don't even realize we're doing it. But I think we're probably communicating internally a lot with one another and don't even realize that we're doing it.
Right.
During the Cold War, so when it came out with a lot of the remote viewing we hear about today later on in life, right? Do you think, how much of that do you think was influential in the war? Like with, especially during the Soviet Union and nuclear, weaponry. You think that helped us, the United States, or maybe help Russia in certain situations? I mean, is that something we can rely on?
I think the way they approached it was pretty reliable, just because they had numerous people looking at one subject. I mean, it couldn't be wrong. So they had to have several people, and they had to back up one another. So they would analyze, maybe 50 different remote viewers' information that they got on maybe a location, before they would actually accept that as such. And in the classes that I teach, I can say that it's always best if you have, multiple people doing the work, because some of it, we know that the perspective is very difficult when you're in those levels. So one person may get something as being very small, another person may get the same thing, but it's very large. So that there's a difference in the people. So you have to compare and analyze. So yeah, I think it probably did. We may never know most of the things that were successful, But yeah, I don't think they would have spent the time and effort doing it if not. I think they're probably still doing it. I think it's probably just gone into different names. They don't call it the same thing anymore. They probably contracted out to people. That there's all kinds of information that you can get that way. But also surveillance today is so much more sophisticated. The technology is so much more sophisticated. They don't need it in the same way that perhaps they needed it back in the 70s.
That does make sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at all the technology available, you're probably right about that one.
It's come a long way.
Yeah.
Yep, most definitely. I don't know. I think like they still do all of that kind of stuff, the government.
Yeah. I think they probably do. I think that it serves a purpose different from a lot of the other types of surveillance things, especially if, and I don't know, I knew all those guys in the Stargate program and have trained under many of them. And I don't ever remember them talking about looking into, like future events. I'm sure they probably did, but I don't ever remember hearing them talk about that. They did see things in the future, but by accident, mostly, they would do I remember Joe McMoneagle remote viewed session, and he just knew he was right, but it was a location that had absolutely nothing on. It was just a vacant lot, and he drew this elaborate office building, and he could have sworn he was absolutely correct. And it took about 5 years, but 5 years later, that very thing he drew popped up on that lot.
Wow.
So, oftentimes we're just a little out of sync time wise, with things. Yeah.
Interesting.
Have you looked ahead into the future and some of the things you might have seen? Have they come true or were relatively accurate?
Well, I'll tell you one of the most dramatic ones, I guess. My husband and I were real estate investors, but we were small time. We didn't have a lot of cash on hand or anything like that. But we were building, collecting, moving forward with that. And there was an auction coming up of a farm with a 8,000 square foot house, beautiful home. So we went to look at it. It was an open house. It was going to auction in about 3 weeks. We didn't have much time. But this was way out of our price budget. I mean, we were buying, smaller rental properties or buying, selling, fixing up and selling, that sort of thing is what we were doing. So we're driving around. It was 222 acres. It had been a huge horse ranch. It had an 8,000 square foot house with 3 stories, a big pool in the back, this gorgeous, iron gate in the front that opened up to this paved driveway with trees on each side, going up the hill to this beautiful, gorgeous home. I think it was a 5-car garage, something like that. It was just gigantic. So, of course, we were just on a Sunday afternoon gazing at this thing. This wasn't anything we were going to buy. It was out of our price reach. So we're driving through the field, and all of a sudden I get this, there again, that silver platter of opportunity, hit you in your lap. And I hear, this is going to sell for $300,000. And I say that out loud because it just came in so fast. And my husband said, if this sells for $300,000, we better buy it. I mean, we're talking,
Sure.
We're talking around, 2001, 2002 prices of real estate at that time. But this thing was about worth probably close to $1 million at that time. Wow. Today it would be worth probably close to, 500 or $5 million or something like that. It incrementally it would have gone. So we didn't have $300,000 to buy this in 3 weeks. Okay, so this is that thing where I said, opportunity comes and sits in your lap. I've been shown this. I've been told this. Now what do I do with it? So in order for us to buy that at that price, which would have been a heck of a good deal, we had to get a loan in place. So we contacted the loan officer. We knew what we had to have. We were approved, but we had to have a certain amount of down payment. This is where minds start communicating. I'm telling you, this may seem freaky, but I just think it's the way the world works, and we don't always realize it or don't step out and use it. So 2 people contacted us without us making any effort. That week, they wanted to buy 2 small properties we had, pay cash for it, and close within the week, and it was the exact amount we needed for the down payment. Okay, so oh my gosh. So we're at the auction, assuming it might go for more than $300,000 because this was a ridiculously low price. And it started out kind of low, maybe 50. I think it was going up $50,000 increments. Got to 250,000. My husband jumped in at 300,000. It wasn't 2 seconds until the auctioneer said sold, and we bought that thing for 300,000.
Wow.
That's the sort of thing that it's just over and over and over. Not maybe to that degree, but it's just something that's been my entire life. That's what things. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing too. I don't believe in coincidence. You were meant to have that house.
Yeah. I think it was remarkable, but it's happened so often. It's like when the real estate had happened a lot, even with Bigfoot coming along. It's like I didn't know there was I wouldn't have thought anything about that Bigfoot reference had that woman not told me that. You see,
sure.
She got my attention. Met Scott Nelson. That all just kind of took off. And now I'm in a whole different ball game, a whole different world on YouTube than I was before. It was like, just silver platter of opportunity. Just follow it. But if I had not followed that, if I just listened to that, I don't know anything about Bigfoot. I don't want to pursue Bigfoot. If I would have gone that route instead of paying attention and really following through with it, I would never have had this channel.
Yeah. Yep.
Never met you guys.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't have. I mean, things do happen for a reason in life.
They do.
Yeah, I agree.
I think with myself personally, growing up, a lot of paranormal events I've witnessed and seen, right? Including a UFO I've seen 2. But one was like our entire neighborhood saw it. It actually made the news back when I was a little kid.
Wow.
And then it all led up, and all of a sudden I came across the Bigfoot, in 2018. And then what the crazy thing that I always reflect back on is when I had my paranormal experiences with a variety of ghosts, this, that, and everything else, and even my intuition and calling out that Jimmy being an evil guy, and he was. Then it seems like for whatever the reason, when I had that face-to-face encounter with that, even today, I don't really call it 100% Bigfoot. It was something that's not of this world, right? I mean, it's of the world, but I still, it's still tough for me to say it was Bigfoot. It was something. But with that being said, then I reflect back on my life and everything that from the age of 5, 6, 10, 20, 30, everything it seems like it came full circle. And it makes more sense to me today. And then started talking to people much like yourself, 200-300 people, whatever it's been over the last 3-4 years. It's kind of like it was meant to be for me as well, for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
There's
no coincidence, Rob.
No.
It's interesting. It's weird how the world works. It really is. And I think if more people would get on the bandwagon, because there's so many people that's, against all of this, and they're not putting 2 and 2 together,
That's true. Yeah. And, I think, there's the hard way to go about things and there's an easier way to go about things. So, yeah, I think that, a lot of people just, we're it's just like the opinions of Bigfoot. People are institutionalized to not believe that this exists, or to believe that it's just, woo-woo, hokey-pokey stuff.
Right.
It's like, no, it's pretty valid.
Yep. And like you said, we all started out, I think, with the flesh and blood, and then we've all been kind of converted, because I was diehard. I was like, man, these people are crazy. They don't come out of UFOs, and there's no portals, and, but wow, the more people I've talked to, and these are credible people, like, man, that's changed my views. Exactly.
There's too many of them. There are too many people that seem extremely sincere. They definitely experience something, and there's just too many of them.
And they're not on drugs.
No, they're just really, really solid, good people.
Far from it. Yeah, I was going to ask you, Linda. I know when you first started doing this, kind of, how it all unfolded for you, and you can be honest with your answer.
Okay.
When you first started talking with people, were you on the fence? Well, let me ask you: do you believe that Bigfoot exists today?
I do. Yeah, I do. I don't know what Bigfoot is today, but I do believe that Bigfoot exists today.
$1 million question.
Yeah.
So, but Are you more of a believer today than you were before your first interview, I should say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I've had to just step back. I mean, of course, Scott Nelson gave a pretty good case right off the bat, because he had all that footage of the Sierra sounds, and it's like that. That definitely wasn't anything I'd heard before. And then, of course, he told us 6 hours with him. I mean, that was enough to make me really, really evaluate that. I'm not too much of a skeptic though, because I've been around, UFO research. I've done this intuitive stuff, for a long time. For anything like that more catches my interest as a mystery out there more than then I would just turn it off and say, no, that's not even real. I give most things an opportunity to prove itself to me. So I wouldn't say I was that much of a skeptic before, actually.
I get that.
So
I was never really a skeptic either. I always kind of believe there's some truth to it.
Yeah,
Right.
I was never a skeptic in any of these things. I don't know if it was wishful thinking as a kid growing up, but I thought Bigfoot probably existed. I knew ghosts existed.
Oh yeah.
I seen that, and I saw what probably was a UFO, but that was confirmed when it made the news, right? And even today, we don't know 100% if it was a craft. And let me ask you, Linda, since you mentioned you started out, or one of your skill sets or whatever you want to call it, you're into UFO research and that. So what brought you into that? What have you come across in ufology that makes you think that there's actually something else out there outside of the cryptid world?
There was a flap of UFOs that came across this area back in the early 90s, and that made the news. And I got involved with the MUFON group, who investigates UFOs. And I was doing hypnosis professionally at that time. So they asked me if I would do hypnotic regressions. That was a really popular thing to do. A lot of books were coming out about, and Whitley Strieber's book was out. A lot of people were doing hypnotic regressions to see if they had actually been abducted by aliens. So which I didn't have an opinion of that either, one way or another. I don't know if these things are real. I don't know if their experiences are real, but I started doing the regressions, and that was an eye opener. A lot of very, very unusual and very strange experiences that people were describing that they had anyway. I don't doubt that, that something has happened to them. I don't know exactly what, and I don't know by whom. So that was an eye opener with the within the UFO community. And then I started a UFO group, and we went out and did investigations and talked to people and took trips and traveled around, to places that a lot of UFO activity had happened. So even though I haven't really seen much myself, my mother's seen a UFO, my brother-in-law saw a UFO, tons of people I know have seen UFOs, but not myself. So.
Yeah. I think there's more of them out there than you really think, when you look up at the skies, because I don't know, we seen one time we were up at Malvern Manor and watching the skies up there, and it was probably 1:00 in the morning. We watched like a mothership just break apart in like 5 different pieces, and they all went different ways. That was really neat.
I think if I were more of an outdoors person too, I haven't spent a huge amount of time, camping or just late at night, just star watching or stargazing or anything like that. So I think, the people that are in proximity to be able to see them more probably do see them more.
Yep, I would agree. Totally.
Yeah, I think that with what I saw, it definitely was. I mean, it was like I was 7 or 8 years old. I remember my mom woke up me and my brother early for school because she was observing something out of the kitchen window, and she called me and my brother down. And I'm like, Ma, it's too early to get up for school. Just get your blah, blah, blah in here. So sure enough, we look and I see up in the air, there was this spherical object. And then we all went outside in the backyard. And it was funny because at the time I thought maybe I wasn't seeing what I was seeing because I was a fan of Lost in Space. And I must tell you that this flying saucer, which we called it way back in the day, flying saucer, it looked like the one on Lost in Space. It was even that metallic gold color. And it was just hovering maybe 200, 300 like yards straight up, kind of just hanging out, doing his thing, hovering, and then boom, it just in an instant, it just darted within a second, gone right up into the sky, gone.
Wow.
And my mom at the time called my dad. Now, back in the day, he worked in the factory, and the wives weren't supposed to call the husbands at
Right.
work unless it was an emergency, right? And not to mention, as you can recall, there's no cell phones, So got him on the phone and told my dad, and he goes, "Are you got to be kidding me? Pull me off the factory floor for this? My boss can be mad." Blah blah blah. Hangs up on my mom. So, and I remember me and my brother in our bedroom were doing homework. 5 o'clock news came on, and she again calls me and my brother out. And my mom and dad are watching the news. Here it is. They did a small, like 30 seconds report in our area that like 200 people called into the local news station saying they saw something that appeared a flying saucer in the air.
Mm-hmm.
This was back in, I don't know, the early 70s, mid 70s or something. So, and then that kind of confirmed back as a kid that, yeah, that was definitely something. And then, so yeah, I mean, so what was it? I don't know. I mean, but
UFO, it sounds like.
it was unidentified flying object. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. And what are UFOs, What are they? What's inside them?
Right.
That's
A lot of questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was ever abducted, though, Linda, if I'd want to and didn't know it. Because, many people have been abducted that don't even know they've been abducted.
Right.
Really.
Mhm.
I don't know if I'd want to go through that. Was that regression therapy? That seems to me that would be kind of strange. And they play back.
Usually it's people that have some vague memory and that haunts them until they can feel like they have, slightly more answers. I know there was a case where a woman and her mother had gone to a city that was several hours distance to shop, and on their way home they were diverted down a road because of road work, and it was a road they didn't know, and they lost time. They got lost, they felt like, and they came into their home city from a completely different place. And it should not have taken them the length of time it took them, and they were both very disoriented. It was very strange. So they went back to try to find this road because it was a newly paved road. And at that time, nowhere in this rural area were there newly paved roads. Everything was, just needing repair, it seemed like. So they tried to find the road that they were on. They never did find it. So it was years, and they just always questioned what happened because there was this missing time. So they finally went under regression, and both separately, of course, and they both had the same experience where they both remember a craft. They remember driving down this road and a craft was in the air, and I think they had some conscious memory of some of that. And then they pulled over, and the next thing they remember is being up inside the craft, and they were taken into separate rooms. But they both had the exact same story that they told under regression.
So I believe something like that for sure. It happened.
Something
for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to get with someone and do a past life regression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to do a lot of those with people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy. There's a gentleman that I'm debating whether or not I want him on the show. I'll have anybody on the show because it doesn't matter. It matters. I should retract that. It does matter. But there's somebody that I'm flipping a coin who told me that he fought with Napoleon, and, I'm like, wow, which would be fascinating, you guys. But, he says he's had many past lives, been reincarnated, speaks with the
a lot of people that say that.
And I think it's not far fetched, but I don't know if the audience, I just want to make sure that anyway, I'll leave it at that. Yeah. I got to thank really quickly, you guys, Diane Boss, Larry Sharp, Mr. Castro, for your awesome super chats, and new BMR Pirates. Thank you so much. Sir Brian Bowden, Walter Kubinski. If I miss you, I want to make sure I don't miss nobody. Sir Brian, Walter, Amanda, Joshua, Larry, and Diane. Thank you guys for your contributions. It's always appreciated. I don't expect it, but very much appreciated by myself and Krista. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So, Linda, what you got going on? We're about coming down to the end of the show. Anything special you'd like to announce, or where we can find you, or anything else?
Well, I'm going to start a new podcast. I don't have that out yet, but it's going to be something a little different than Bigfoot. I'm going to keep that one up too. I'm always going to be faithful to my Bigfoot fans. That there's so many more people to interview. I've got new workshops and classes coming up. People can find me on Facebook. I'm almost always putting them there. Come become part of the group. Go to my YouTube channel, and you can see all the Bigfoot stuff that I have going on. That's what I have going on for the time being. I'm working on another book.
Yeah. You also have a metaphysics group as well on Facebook.
I do. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
yeah.
I'm part of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything will be advertised on there if I have any workshops coming up or anything like that. Of course, I'm going to be with you guys in September.
Yeah.
Yes, you are. And actually, Sir Brian Bowden's in chat. He'll be down there with us as well. Mm-hmm. Hey, Brian. He'll be there. I mean, we've got literally 18 to 20 featured guests and speakers total.
Wow. Yeah.
Right around there. I mean, it's a nice number.
Yes.
It's a great show. Looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
Today is Tuesday. What you got going on, Chris, on Thursday?
We have Bigfoot week this week. So Thursday, Brandy and I have Will Lunsford and Stephen Hill.
Oh, very nice.
Part 1, and then part 2 on Friday we have Daniel Becker.
So wow, it's a great group of guys, and they all research together.
We got part 1 on Thursday and part 2 on Friday.
And William is going to be with us as well.
He will be. Yeah. I did invite Stephen Hill and Daniel as well to the conference. So we'll see.
Well, very good. We'll see. Mm-hmm. I want to thank everybody in the chat room for showing up. Love your support. Hit the like button on your way out. Linda Eastburn. It's simply at Linda Eastburn. Yep. Linda Eastburn on YouTube. She really does have a great channel, a lot of great interviews, a lot of encounters with different people from Bigfoot, mostly Bigfoot, some Dogman. I think you've got mixed in there too, right, Linda?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's several of them.
Pretty much interviewed just about everybody that I.
Yeah. Well, in fact, because the Tuesday night show is a guest-driven show, and I've had guests for the last 2-3 years. I'm thinking I might have to go over to your channel and start pilfering some of them.
Right.
And I'm sure you wouldn't mind.
No, they make the rounds. They're good. They're really good people to interview. Yeah.
Yep. Well, our friend Chris Kramer, he was just on your show.
He was. Yes. Yeah.
He's a good friend.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good deal.
So thanks, Linda. Thanks to everybody. Hopefully your weather holds out for you, Linda. You don't get anything too drastic roll through. I haven't heard anything in the background, so hopefully you're in the clear.
No, no tornado warnings right now, so I think we're good.
Yep.
Well, good. That's awesome. So, stay safe, everybody. Thank you. Hit that like button on your way out. So for Krista and for Linda, I'm BMR, and we'll see you next time.
See y'all.
Bye-bye.
This is the future. Evolution.
The Crossing Realms Conference launches September 19th and 20th and will dock in Richmond, Missouri. This is already being called the event of the year, folks, with an unprecedented list of speakers and special guests, 2 days of cryptids, UFOs, and paranormal presentations, along with a celebrity-filled ghost hunt, meet and greet, gallery reading, vendors, and a film screening. This promises to be both educational and fun. Go to Eventbrite.com to secure your tickets and vendor slots before they are all abducted. They're going fast.